Yo guys, we're back with a Seth solo side quest. I think this is episode 4 of this now. Obviously you're joined by your boy Seth from the Lonely Stoners podcast. I'm not joined by Evan for this. It's just like I said, solo side quest where we talk about a wide range of stuff, anything from boxing to MMA to basketball to wrestling. The last one I did, I gave predictions for AEW World's End. Obviously that event has been and gone by this point. I didn't watch it. I just gave my predictions. I think for the most part I was pretty spot on. Obviously the big major L I got from that event was predicting Carl Fletcher to win the Continental Classic, and of course he didn't. He lost to Will Ospreay, and then Will Ospreay went on to lose to Okada. I haven't watched the event, but from what I saw in the highlights from those matches, they looked like great matches. And of course at World's End we saw the return of Kenny Omega after Okada beat Will Ospreay. Kenny Omega returned. But it's super interesting to see what they do there. Kenny Omega obviously returning as EVP, Executive Vice President, I think it stands for. It's been a while since we've seen Kenny Omega. Obviously last time we saw him, the Elite being Young Bucks and Okada kind of turned on him, beat him up. So it would be super interesting to see what they do now. It looks like Okada and Omega are going to be feuding for the Continental Championship. Should be, those two always put on great matches. That being said, both of these guys are a lot older than when they were first having these matches. You know, these guys were first having these matches at this point, what would have been 6-7 years ago. Both of them are a lot older, a lot more grizzled, but a lot more experienced as well. So it would be super interesting to see what those matches look like when they happen now. Other than that, today I'm looking through a Bleacher Report article about the 6 boxing fights we need to see in 2025. So I'm going to go through this article and then give my opinions on it, talk about it. I'll give my opinions on if we think we'll see these fights, and if we do, who will win and what will be next for these guys after that fight. So the first one is Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. This is one that probably is less of a dream fight now than it would have been, before 2024. But both of these guys are coming off. I would say Fury is coming off a huge loss in terms of the nature of it. They're back-to-back losses, and he's lost his world title. But there were competitive fights. They were competitive and pretty close for the most part. Anthony Joshua got his chin spun. Got knocked out badly by Daniel Dubois. This is not the first time Anthony Joshua's been knocked out badly either. So, yes, it would be a dream fight, and like I've said on the podcast to Evan, at this point, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua is the biggest fight for each of these guys, the biggest non-title fight for each of these guys, where Anthony Joshua can't face Usyk again in the trilogy because he's already lost to him twice. To be fair, the same for Tyson Fury as well. And Usyk's got all the belts, except from Daniel Dubois, who violently, pretty badly knocked out Anthony Joshua. So Anthony Joshua, he's pretty cooked. Because the two guys that have world championships are two guys that beat him dominantly. So he's a million miles away from a world title shot. And Tyson Fury coming off back-to-back losses, really, he's not going to be looking at getting another world title shot. And if he does, it'll be against Daniel Dubois. And really, even at this point in 2025, Tyson Fury v Anthony Joshua is bigger than Tyson Fury v Dubois. And really, Tyson Fury should win that fight pretty handedly. He lost to Usyk. He did. The first fight was it's weird because watching it at the time, it felt like the first fight was a more dominant performance than the second fight. But the second fight was more dominant. I think because in my head I'm remembering Tyson getting dropped badly. That is sort of the imprinted memory on my head from that fight. But they were both relatively competitive and relatively close fights. Like when I say relatively competitive, I mean in terms of being more competitive than Joshua v Usyk. Joshua v Usyk shut him down. Joshua couldn't really get anything going, and Usyk was just 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of him at every point in the fight. Joshua was able to throw some shots and land some shots, but he never looked really dangerous at any point during those fights. And Usyk, like I said, Usyk pretty much shut him down. But both of these guys, in terms of Fury and Anthony Joshua. It's the biggest non-title fight these guys can get. And if it happens in the UK, both of these guys could easily sell out Wembley, I think, or the Tottenham Stadium. And it'd be a huge night for boxing if those two were able to fight. My pick for that fight would be Tyson Fury. Because I think even at this point, Tyson Fury is just a better boxer. And I'm not sure if Anthony Joshua is slick enough to land enough big shots to put Tyson Fury out. And he's definitely not a good enough boxer to win that fight over 12 rounds. I see Anthony Joshua v Tyson Fury fight pretty similar to how I see a Joshua v Usyk fight. In terms of, he won't be able to outbox him. And it's just a matter of if Anthony Joshua can put together enough big shots to stop him. He couldn't against Usyk. I'd struggle to see him do it against Tyson Fury, to be fair. That being said, Usyk's beaten him twice. There is a bit of a blueprint there, but to sort of successfully complete that blueprint, you've got to be an elite level boxer, because knowing what to do and doing it are two very different things, especially in boxing, especially when you're getting hit in the face. But will be a great fight, and from what I'm reading here on Bleacher Report, it looks like Eddie Hearn would be on board to making this fight, and of course he would. It would be a huge fight, particularly in England. Particularly in England, these guys could easily sell out Wembley, easily sell out the Tottenham Stadium, and make crazy amounts of money while doing so. And next we've got Canelo Alvarez v Terrence Crawford. Now, this is one that I've been seeing for the past couple months. Seems like it's one of those, big money fights, big dream fights. And I'm not sure if it makes sense. I mean, financially, no doubt in my mind, it will make sense for both of these guys. They'll both walk away from that fight with multi-million checks. And, without a doubt, both of these guys are going down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Legendary fighters, both of them. And they're generational stars. Canelo has pretty much been the biggest star in boxing since Floyd retired. I'm going to say since Floyd retired at the lower weight classes, Canelo's been the biggest star in boxing. Even not just at the lower weight classes, in all of boxing, he's been the biggest star. Because I'm thinking, who's the biggest stars in boxing right now? And who were they 5 years ago as well? 5 years ago, it was probably Canelo, Fury, Anthony Joshua. I think that's fair to say. That's who I would say were probably the three biggest stars in boxing at that point. Now you look at it now, it's probably Canelo. It's still even Canelo. Usyk. The thing with Usyk is he's accomplished a lot, but I don't know if he's that big of a star. It's different. It's difficult to tell because, like I said, I don't know if he's that big of a star. So I won't put Usyk up there, even though what he's accomplished, he deserves to be up there. But it depends on what you're doing in terms of, pay-per-view numbers. But also, his last couple of fights, they've been against superstars. So, Usyk v Anthony Joshua does major numbers. That doesn't mean Usyk's the star. We all know Anthony Joshua's the star in that situation. Same with Tyson Fury. We all know Tyson Fury's the star in that situation. So, does that make Usyk the star now? It should, in terms of belts. And now he's got the belt, so he should be the biggest star. But it's not the way the pay-per-view business works, unfortunately. So I would say Canelo, Gervonta Davis. Who else? I mean, that's the thing. Boxing's been struggling to get stars. Maybe you would put Usyk up there, and the Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford up there, definitely one of the biggest stars in the sport right now. And it would be, again, similar to Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, would be a huge event. They could do that arena in Texas that Crawford and Spence did. Was it the AT&T Arena? Huge capacity. They could do that, sell that out easily. They do that fight in Mexican Independence Day or something when Canelo usually fights. That is a gigantic event, particularly in Texas where they've got loads of those Mexicans down there. Huge event. But for me, I'm looking at Canelo in terms of what fight would this weight be at, first of all. Because Canelo, even though Canelo's only 34, He's been boxing forever, right? Canelo was a pro at 16. He became a champion at 20. He's 34 now. And you look at his record. I haven't got it in front of me now, but he must have over 60 fights at this point. Over 60 pro fights. That's gonna take a bearing on you, especially when you have to especially when you now have to do a big weight cut. Because Crawford, the biggest Terrence Crawford has fought at is 154. Right? I would be very surprised if Canelo, I wouldn't be that surprised. Canelo could probably get down to 160 again. It'd be hard, but I think he'd get down to 160. So you're looking at that coming into that fight. Canelo's going to have a huge weight advantage against him. Realistically, I would see Canelo walking into that fight 170, 175 potentially against Crawford, who would be walking in at 160 on the dot. And Crawford can bang. Don't get twisted. Crawford can seriously bang. And he's knocked out a lot of guys. And he's seriously skilled. But when I say that, and when I hear people say that, it sounds like they're trying to take away from Canelo. Like, oh, Crawford's really skilled. Bro, have you not watched Canelo's fights? Canelo is way too big. And he's just as skilled. Maybe not just as skilled, but really skilled. Very hard to hit. And he bangs, bro. Canelo lands big shots. And he will keep you honest. And against a smaller guy, he'll probably knock him out. So, in my opinion, it's a pretty easy fight for Canelo. And it's hard to say because it's hard to hear as well that Terrence Crawford is an easy fight for anyone. But in relative terms, I think Canelo could walk down Crawford. He could pin him against the ropes or the corner and really unload on him. And I think it's going to be too much for a guy like Crawford to take. Because you're getting hit by a guy who's, pushing 170, 180 when you're fighting. And you started your career at 135. You started your career at 135 and you're getting hit by a guy who's pushing 180. It's going to be a struggle. But that being said, Crawford could be too skilled. He could be, because he's probably the best boxer outside of Bivol that Canelo would have fought in terms of technical boxing. Triple G, amazing fighter. That doesn't even need to be said at this point. But in terms of defense, and in terms of being a slick boxer, even Bivol's not particularly that slick. Bivol's kind of similar to Triple G, where he's just got really good fundamentals and has drilled those fundamentals over hundreds and hundreds of amateur fights, and now a pro, and is just able to outbox him. But also Bivol was a lot bigger than Canelo in that fight, and you could see it, and you could just see it in the way Bivol kind of approached that fight. In terms of a lot of guys can't fight Canelo that way. The way Bivol fought Canelo, a lot of people can't fight Canelo that way because Canelo can bang. Canelo will, even if you throw 2, 3, 4 punch combos, you take one punch from Canelo, you're like, damn, okay, let me chill. I'm getting too comfortable here. But Bivol kind of just walked him down, kept the pressure on him, avoided most of Canelo's big shots, and was putting those combos together. Really, if in boxing, right, it's easy to dodge one punch. It's easy to dodge 2 punches. Once you get to 3, 4, 5 punch combinations, very difficult to dodge, right? And you got a guy like Bivol who's drilled the fundamentals so well. Bivol will not get disheartened over a 12-round fight if he misses the first 2 punches of a 5-punch combination, particularly when he's having joy landing the 3rd, 4th, and 5th punch. Typically, guys, even if it's not their game plan to do so, when they fight Canelo, they throw one punch, he slips it, he hits them with a big shot, big body shot, big shot to the head. And you're like, damn, I'm cooked. But, yeah, that's how guys tend to fight Canelo. Bivol didn't do that. Crawford maybe could do that. He's got the speed to do it. He's definitely got the speed to do it. But it depends if Crawford is able to take those big shots. I think it really just comes down to, is Canelo too big or is Crawford too skilled? That's really what it comes down to. But my pick for that fight would be Crawford. Would be Canelo Alvarez. What else we got here? We got some women's fights. I'm not trying to steal that. Okay. Bleacher Report have given us Conor McGregor v Jake Paul. Now, I don't know. Is this a dream fight? I don't know. I guess so. I've been seeing rumours that McGregor's going to fight Logan Paul in India. And I'm seeing rumours of that fight, they're going to get paid 250 mil each. When you see those sorts of numbers, you have to call cap. Because these two guys are nowhere near big enough stars to be commanding that sort of money, right? At the end of the day, boxing is a business. Like, call it what you want. Professional boxing is a business. If you're a promoter, you need to pay these guys enough money for it to be attractive for them, but enough money to where you can still turn a profit on that event. I'm telling you, Conor McGregor v Jake Paul, or Conor McGregor v Logan Paul, in India, is not making that promoter 500 million. That's what he would need to make, at least, to cover himself. In terms of paying both of these fighters 250 mil, plus an event, plus production. That's not going to happen. Even when both of these guys were at the peak of their powers, in terms of popularity, they wouldn't be able to command this sort of money. Floyd Mayweather, the biggest boxing draw in all of pay-per-view, never made 250 mil in one fight. Never even came close to it. Floyd got paid. Floyd made money, but he did not make 250 mil in one fight. Never. Logan Paul is nowhere near a big enough star to do this. And Conor McGregor in 2025, also nowhere near a big enough star to do this. But Conor McGregor v Jake Paul, would still be the same in terms of neither of them could command that sort of money. But Conor McGregor v Jake Paul is an interesting proposition to me. But not really. Not really at the same time, because it's more of this, a special attraction, weird sort of boxing. There's not this weird sort of not really serious boxing where Conor McGregor hasn't won a fight in nearly 5 years. Right? He's not won a fight in nearly 5 years. His last win, I want to say it was Cowboy Cerrone, but don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Yeah, that was his last win, Cowboy Cerrone. And Bleacher Report are saying Conor McGregor is still Conor McGregor. I hate when they say this, because he's not. Conor McGregor is not still Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor in 2025 is not the Conor McGregor of 2020. Is not the Conor McGregor of 2018. And certainly isn't the Conor McGregor of 2015, 2016. Not even close. So I'm not trying to hear Conor McGregor is still Conor McGregor, because he's not. He's a guy who really was an average-sized lightweight, a huge featherweight, a small welterweight, and he's going to be facing Jake Paul, who boxes at cruiserweight. So even if Conor McGregor can weigh in at anywhere near to cruiserweight, he's not going to be in good shape. To be fair, this fight's not going to be in America. There's not going to be any USADA testing. But even then, a 190-pound Conor McGregor is not an in-shape guy. He will look in shape, but dude will be getting blown out. Dude will be getting gassed by the third or fourth round in a boxing fight against Jake Paul. Jake Paul, he's like my height. What is he, like 6 foot? And Conor's all of 5'9". Conor at 5'9", 190, he would just look like a one of these chodes, bro. Just short and fat. He won't look fat because he'll have loads of muscle on his frame, but it just won't be a good look for him, because we know Conor, an in-shape Conor is no more than 165, 170. Like, when he weighed in at 170, when he's fighting at 170, he was in good shape. Even then, those fights, he was getting gassed. The only time you wouldn't really see Conor get gassed was at 145. And he was a phenom at 145 because he was just so much bigger than all of these guys and could take those shots. And he would have... In fact, he didn't really have that many wars at 145 because he was knocking dudes out. I think there's something to be said about that in terms of weight cutting. I think people... Of course, cutting weight is not a good thing in terms of fighting with a dehydrated brain. But also there is some merit behind it because the amount of cardio you have to do to drop that much weight means by the time you get to the fight, you should be, in terms of your cardio, should be on point. That's basically what we saw with Conor, where this guy had to do so much cardio to get down to 145. By the time he was having a fight, there was nothing you could really do to gas him out. And because he's so much bigger than these 145ers, he's taking their best shots too. That being said, this Conor will not be fighting at 145 against Jake Paul. He'll be fighting at cruiserweight, 190, 195, 200 pounds. And Jake Paul probably dog walk him. If I'm being honest, Jake Paul's got way more boxing experience at this point. He's way more dedicated to the game as well. You know, Conor's out here worried about beating cases. He's out here worried about beating cases. He's not in the gym. He's not in the lab. Jake Paul has invested serious money in terms of his boxing infrastructure, in terms of getting coaches and, getting some decent boxing heads around him. And we're seeing it in the performances where, okay, the Mike Tyson fight was a joke. The Tommy Fury fight he lost, but was competitive in, to be fair to him. And other than that, he's beaten everyone else he's faced. Beat Anderson Silva. Okay, because you think about this, right? If Conor was to fight Anderson Silva in a boxing match, who would win? Or in an MMA fight, who would win? Obviously not now, but say even 6 years ago, you put Anderson v Conor, you let Conor take juice, Conor goes up to 185, Anderson v Conor, who wins? Probably Anderson. Conor could catch him, because even at that weight class, even in France gloves in MMA, he could catch him. But I'm probably putting my money on Anderson, even still. Even though Anderson's a lot slower, hasn't got the punch resistance that he once had. But, hey, who knows? And then, of course, you've got Conor, his previous boxing experience, when he went 10 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. And that was when Conor was at the peak of his powers. And he didn't get paid anywhere near 250 mil for that fight. But we'll see. We'll see. There's been a couple of fights on here that they mentioned. There's a women's fight. I'm not talking about that. Some other fights here, but those were the ones that were worthwhile talking about, in my opinion. I don't think there's been a great much else going on in terms of news. We've got... Aaron Pico's PFL contract has expired. So Aaron Pico, one of these guys who I imagine was sort of transferred over when Bellator got bought out by PFL. But what we got here, just reading the article now. Aaron Pico was once regarded one of the best prospects in MMA. This was true because he was I'm sure he was like a national wrestling champion or something, or had some pedigree in wrestling and had won Golden Gloves boxing competition. So on paper, you look at this guy and you're like, damn, that's a serious resume coming into MMA, where you're only going to get better. But I think as typically happens in MMA, there was some turbulence early on in his career. But he's on a nice streak now. He's won 9 of his last 10 fights. And the only fight he lost was when he dislocated his shoulder in fight. Okay, but Pico hasn't been seen in action since a first-round TKO of Henry Corrales, nice, at February's PFL v Bellator Champions event in Saudi Arabia. However, he's only competed 3 times in the last 2 years, which, for a fighter as young as Aaron Pico and a fighter with as much pre-MMA accolade, and a fighter who's probably, like I said, his inactivity has caused some frustration. I can imagine, he's not a young guy. He wants to get out there and fight as often as he can to make as much money as he can and get as close to a world title fight as he can. Inactivity has caused some frustration with several notable Bellator fighters since the promotion was acquired by PFL in late 2023. Yeah, and his manager, Ali Abdulaziz, says Pico is currently a free agent. It would be interesting to see where Pico ends up. You hear not great things about ONE FC in terms of, not getting fight offers. So Pico goes to ONE FC, the same sort of thing happens. maybe the only option for Pico is to go to the UFC and see if they make him an offer. I would be surprised if the UFC didn't make him an offer. You know, he's a guy who's won 9 of his last 10. His record's 13-4. He's still relatively young. How old was he? Now, he must be 27, 28. Still young. He's still young. So, I would be surprised if UFC didn't show at least some interest. I'd imagine they'd give him a bigger... I'd imagine they'd give him, you know, a pay rise. To be honest, compared to what he was on in Bellator. But... who knows? I think when you're a young fighter, you're Pico, you're 28, we all know that the UFC is the pinnacle of MMA. So that's where you want to be. But the UFC is not the only place you can go in MMA to make money, but it's where you go to make the most money. So we'll see what's next for Aaron Pico. To be fair, Rising probably has some nice talent at those weight classes. Could give him some good fights, and he could probably make a nice bag there. Get a world title fight after a few fights. I don't even know what weight division he's at. Is he a lightweight? I'm sure. What's this? Let me find out what weight division he's at. I want to say he's a lightweight, but I can't find it now. Henry Corrales, he was like a featherweight lightweight, isn't he? I want to say featherweight. But yeah, Aaron Pico could fight. He could probably fight at both, to be fair. He'd probably fight at featherweight and lightweight. Maybe Rising's an option. This is, you know, maybe part of the problem why PFL buying Bellator is a bad thing, because now there's less places for these guys to work. Right? So before, say Pico was at PFL, he would have the option of maybe going to Bellator, maybe going to ONE FC, maybe going to UFC, maybe going to Rising, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that's it from me. It's been Seth Solo Side Quest. I think this is episode 4 of this now. Been doing them a bit more frequently recently, just whenever I get time and jump on, talk about some stuff. But yeah, that's it from me. And I'm sure soon, well, I know episode, I want to say 12 of the podcast will be coming out in the next couple of days. When I'm recording this, episode 11 dropped today, but episode 12 will be out in a few days, and by the time this drops, episode 12 might even be out. So check that out. The Lonely Stoner podcast is me, myself, Seth, and my co-host Evan, talking about a wide range of topics, literally just like this, but longer and more funny, because my guy Seth is the glue that my guy Evan, I'm Seth. Our relationship on the podcast is what holds the podcast together, makes it very fun to listen to and very entertaining. But when I'm by myself, it's solo dolo, it's more formal, but still fun. I still enjoy it, and right now I'm just yapping like my name's MMA Guru, and I've just muted the mic and started singing Lord of the Rings songs. If you know, you know. But yeah, that's been it from me. I'm Seth. This has been the Seth Solo Side Quest episode 4, like I said, and I'm out. Cool.